What if the silence you're drowning in is actually the sound of God carrying you? Could your greatest strength be hidden in the very brokenness you're trying to escape? Are you mistaking survival for weakness, when in truth, God is proving His presence in your storm? There are moments in life when the pain is too heavy, the silence too loud, and the nights far too long. You've cried behind closed doors, worn a smile in public, while your soul was screaming in private. And maybe right now you're there wondering if you'll make it through this storm. But I want to tell you something. With all the love and power, in my heart, God has not forgotten you. He sees every tear, He hears every groan, and He knows exactly where you are. You're not abandoned, you're not invisible, and you are not alone. Even if the people around you don't understand your struggle, God does. And not only does He understand, it is His desire to carry you through it. Yes, carry you, not push you, not drag you, carry you gently, lovingly, like a father lifting his wounded child. You see, the Bible never promises a life free of hardship, but it promises a God who walks with you through the fire. And when your strength fails, and it will, His will not. When your hope fades, and it might, His love remains constant. There is a tenderness in the way God handles your broken pieces. You may feel shattered right now. But friend, He is not done with you. He is shaping something eternal from your pain, something beautiful from your ashes. You don't have to know the way. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to let Him carry you. Because sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply letting go and falling into the arms of a Savior who never drops what He holds. There's something sacred about brokenness, something holy in the places where we fall apart. It's not pretty. It's not polished. It doesn't look like faith to the world. But in the eyes of God, it's the place where He draws closest. When everything is stripped away, when the layers of pride, self-sufficiency, and performance fall off, what's left is raw, open, and real. And that's exactly where God meets us. You see, we often think we need to be strong for God to work in us. We imagine that He's only near when we have our lives together, when we're praying consistently, smiling confidently, and walking in perfect obedience. But that's not the God of Scripture. That's not the heart of the Father. Over and over again, the Word shows us that He is near to the brokenhearted. He doesn't avoid the mess. He steps into it. He doesn't wait for us to get better. He comes close when we're at our worst. Think about it. When you're strong, when you feel capable and confident, how often do you really cry out for help? It's in our weakness that we discover His strength. It's in our emptiness that we find the fullness of His grace. When everything falls apart and we're sitting in the dust of our disappointments, that's when we begin to hear the whisper of His presence saying, "I'm right here. I never left." God doesn't despise your brokenness. He's not disappointed by your tears. In fact, He treasures them. The Psalms tell us He collects every tear in a bottle. Everyone. That means not a single cry has been wasted. Not one night of sobbing into your pillow has gone unnoticed by heaven. While the world sees weakness, God sees worship. Because when you're broken and you still whisper, "I trust you," that kind of faith shakes the heaven. He is not drawn to strength like the world is. The world applauds performance and power. But God is drawn to honesty. He is drawn to the humble heart that says, "I can't do this on my own." That's the heart He inhabits. That's where He moves with tenderness and power. Because when you know you're broken, you're finally ready to be healed. When you know you've come to the end of yourself, you're finally at the beginning of Him. It's in the hospital rooms, in the divorce court, waiting areas, in the lonely apartments, and the graveside prayers. That's where His presence is thickest, the moments you felt like nobody understood. When your voice trembled and your chest ached, when you didn't even have the words to pray, He was there. He didn't need eloquence. He didn't need perfection. All He needed was your surrender. We often confuse God's silence with absence. But He's never been more near than when you're barely holding on. He sits with you in the silence. He weeps with you in the pain. And he speaks in ways the heart can understand even when the ears can't hear a sound. His nearness is not always loud, but it is real. More real than the pain. More real than the fear. More real than the shame. Remember the story of the woman at the well. She was broken in every way, emotionally, spiritually, socially, rejected by others, living in isolation and shame. But Jesus didn't avoid her. He went out of his way to meet her. He revealed his identity to her before anyone else. Why? Because he is close to the brokenhearted. He didn't wait until she fixed her life. He didn't tell her to clean up before receiving his love. He gave it freely in the middle of her mess, or take the woman with the issue of blood. For 12 years, she bled. For 12 years, she suffered unclean, unseen, unwelcome. But the moment she reached out just to touch the edge of his robe, power left him and healing entered her. He felt her pain. He knew her desperation. And even though the crowd was thick, he saw her. In her brokenness, he called her dog. In her shame, he gave her dignity. In her weakness, he restored her strength. Even Jesus himself, fully God yet fully human, was broken. He wept at Lazarus' tomb. Even though he knew resurrection was coming, he cried out in the garden, overwhelmed to the point of death. And on the cross, in his greatest moment of agony, he quoted the Psalms, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He entered into every dimension of human brokenness so that when we walk through our own valleys, we would never walk alone. When you're broken, you're not less spiritual. You're not failing in your faith. You're walking the road that leads to deeper intimacy with the God who knows suffering, who conquered it, and who chooses to carry us through it, not around it. You're on holy ground. You're being shaped, not shattered. What feels like the end is often the beginning of something sacred, something eternal. And even when you don't feel him, even when the pain drowns out the promises, he is closer than your next breath. The enemy wants you to believe that your brokenness disqualifies you, that it puts a barrier between you and God. But the truth is, it creates an altar, a place for him to meet you in ways you've never known before. You don't need to climb your way back to him. You just need to look up, and you'll find that he's already there. And there's a kind of grace that only grows in the dark, a kind of peace that only emerges when everything else is stripped away, and a kind of love that holds you together when you've fallen apart. That's the love of God. That's the closeness of a Father who doesn't need you to be whole, to be near. He just needs you to be willing to let him in. So if you're in a season of breaking, don't run from it. Don't hide it. Bring it to the one who isn't afraid of your pain. Let him draw near. Let him speak life into your dry bones. Let him sit with you in the ashes until the beauty begins to rise. You may feel like you're drowning, but grace is the hand reaching down. You may feel like you're sinking, but love is the anchor that holds. When all you have is a broken hallelujah, he still hears it. When all you can do is whisper his name, he still comes running. And when all you feel is weak, he still calls you his. Because brokenness is not the absence of God. It's often the doorway into his deepest presence. And what you thought disqualified you might just be the very thing God uses to reveal his glory in you. Not when you're perfect, not when you're polished, but right now, right here, in the raw, honest, aching space of your soul. There's a deep ache in the human heart to understand. We crave clarity. We want answers. We want to know why something happened, why it didn't, why it hurts so much, why the waiting is so long, why the doors keep closing, why the people we love are taken, why prayers seem unanswered. We look around at our lives, and when things don't make sense, we start to question not only the plan, but the one who holds it. But faith was never about full understanding. It was never about having all the pieces before you take the next step. It's about trust. Raw, vulnerable, sometimes trembling trust in the heart of a God whose ways are higher than ours, whose thoughts are greater, whose vision sees beyond the mountains we can't climb and the valleys we don't want to walk through. Trust begins where understanding ends. And that's one of the hardest places to be, because we want to see the full picture before we say yes. We want the blueprint before we take the first step. But God doesn't work that way. He never promised us clarity. He promised us presence. He never said it would make sense. He said he would never leave us, nor forsake us. There are seasons in life where God goes silent, not because he's absent, but because he's growing your trust. When you don't hear him, will you still follow? When you don't see the answer, will you still obey? When it doesn't add up, when it doesn't look like the promise, when it feels like the opposite of what you prayed for, will you still believe? He's good. You don't have to understand the plan when you know the heart of the one who made it. You don't have to make sense of every detour, every delay, every disappointment. Because the one writing your story is not just an author. He's a father. And not just any father, but a perfect, loving, all-knowing father who sees the end from the beginning and knows how to weave even your deepest sorrow into something beautiful. God's plan isn't fragile like ours. It doesn't fall apart when life gets hard. It doesn't unravel when we make mistakes. He's not scrambling to fix what went wrong. He already accounted for it. He already made a way through it. He is not surprised by your pain. He's not confused by your confusion. He isn't overwhelmed by your questions. He welcomes them. He invites you to bring your why and lay it at his feet. Not to get the answers you think you need, but to receive the peace your soul is really longing for. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave everything he knew and go to a place he would show him, not a place that was mapped out in advance. There were no coordinates, no clear destination, just a promise and a God who said, "Trust me." And he did. Not because he understood everything, but because he trusted the one who said it. That kind of trust shakes generations. That kind of obedience becomes a legacy. Or consider Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned for years. And yet all of it was part of the plan. He couldn't see it then. It must have felt like his life was falling apart. But behind every moment of pain, every injustice, every tear, God was orchestrating something greater than Joseph could imagine. A plan that would save a nation, a plan that would restore a family, a plan that only made sense looking back. We live our lives forward, but understand them backward. And that's why trust is so essential. Because while we're still in the middle, when the pages are messy, the chapters painful, the plot unclear, we have to believe that the author knows exactly where he's taking us. He's not winging it. He's not improvising. He's working all things together for good, even when we can't feel it, even when it looks like he's doing nothing at all. And yes, there will be times you feel forgotten, times you look around and wonder if God skipped over you. You'll see others walking into their promise while you're still stuck in the waiting room, and the temptation will be to compare, to doubt, to assume something's gone wrong. But God's timing is not delayed. It's divine. His pace is purposeful. He's not just preparing the promise for you. He's preparing you for the promise. That takes time. That takes pressure. That takes a trust that says, even if I don't get it, I'll still go with you. End quote. There are going to be questions that don't get answered in this life. Wounds that don't fully make sense. Prayers that seem to linger in the silence. But none of it means God is not working. His silence is not apathy. His delay is not denial. His mystery is not neglect. He's working in the shadows, orchestrating miracles you can't yet see. And when the time is right, when your heart is ready, when the pieces align, you look back and say, He knew all along. When the children of Israel stood at the edge of the Red Sea, they couldn't see the escape route. All they saw was the water in front of them and the enemy behind them. But God had a plan, a way they didn't know existed. And sometimes that's what trust looks like. Standing at the watt's edge, feeling the pressure, hearing the lies, and still choosing to believe that God is about to do something only He can do. That's where miracles happen. Not in our understanding, but in our surrender. Not in having it all figured out, but in laying it all down. Because the truth is, if we could understand everything, if we had control over every outcome, we wouldn't need God. But trust reminds us, we're not God. And thank goodness for that, because He sees the trap before it's set. He knows the ending before the beginning starts. He knows what's around the corner when all we can see is the bend. You can rest even when it doesn't make sense. You can worship even in the waiting. You can rejoice even in the questions. Because trust doesn't require understanding. It requires relationship. And when you know Him, really know Him, you know He's too good to fail you, too wise to make a mistake, too loving to ever leave you where you are. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to not understand what God is doing. That's not a sign of weak faith. It's the very place where faith is born. Faith doesn't deny the confusion. Faith says, even if I never understand, I will still trust you. That's the kind of faith that touches heaven. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. Not because you know the plan, but because you know the one who made it. And that's enough. There are burdens in life that feel too heavy to carry. The kind that press down on your chest when you wake up, linger with you through the day, and follow you into the night. The ones that don't have easy answers or quick fixes. The grief that comes in waves. The fear that steals your breath. The anxiety that won't let you rest. The heartbreak that leaves you shattered in places no one else can. See? You try to push through. You try to stay strong. You smile when you feel like crying and keep walking even when your legs are trembling underneath you. But the truth is, there are weights that human shoulders were never meant to carry. God never intended for you to carry the full weight of your pain, your past, your future, your family, your finances, or your failures all by yourself. That's why His word says, cast your burdens on the Lord, for He cares for you. Because what feels unbearable to you is light to Him. What is suffocating you is nothing to the one who holds the universe in His hands. What's too complicated for your mind is already worked out in His. There is nothing too big for God. Nothing too messy, too tangled, too dark, or too overwhelming. He doesn't flinch at your load. He doesn't run from your chaos. He doesn't ask you to clean it up first. He simply says, bring it to me. Bring me the weight. Bring me the tears. Bring me the questions, the confusion, the guilt, the shame. Bring me the exhaustion you don't even have words for. Lay it all down because your strength will run out. No matter how brave you are, how determined, how mature in your faith, there comes a point when the burden is just too much. But His strength never runs out. His hands never tire. His back never breaks. He can carry what you cannot. He is not asking you to fake it. He is not asking you to pretend it doesn't hurt. He's asking you to hand it over. Think of a child carrying a suitcase much too big for them. They drag it along, struggling, falling behind, straining with all their might, when all the while their father walks beside them, open-handed, ready to take it, but the child insists on doing it alone. That's how we are sometimes. We say, I've got this, God, while silently crumbling under the weight, and all the while He's whispering, you were never meant to carry that. There's a tenderness in the way God invites us to release our burdens. It's not a demand. It's an invitation. Not a rebuke, but a rescue. He knows how weary you are. He knows how long you've been holding it in, holding it together, holding it all by yourself. And He's not waiting for you to get stronger. He's waiting for you to surrender. Because surrender is not giving up. It's letting go. When we hold our pain too tightly, we become closed off to healing. When we grip our fears too firmly, we miss the peace He offers. But when we open our hands, shaking, trembling, unsure, He takes what's too heavy and replaces it with what's holy. He gives rest for anxiety, peace for fear, joy for mourning, strength for weakness, beauty for ashes. That's the exchange he offers. That's the miracle of grace. Sometimes we don't even realize how heavy the burden is until we finally set it down. We've grown so used to carrying it that it feels normal until his presence floods in and reminds us that we were never meant to live like that. You weren't created to live weighed down by depression, paralyzed by fear, suffocated by pressure, buried under guilt. You were created to live free, to walk in peace, to breathe again, to rest in him. Jesus said, "Come to me all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, not just a break, not just a breath of relief, but rest, real rest, the kind that settles into your bones, calms your soul, and reminds you that you are held. The kind of rest that doesn't require all the answers, doesn't depend on all the circumstances changing, doesn't wait for life to be perfect. It's the rest that comes when you finally trust that what's too heavy for you is light in his hands." Look at how Jesus handled burdens throughout his ministry. He didn't avoid the broken. He didn't turn away from the hurting. He stepped right into their mess and lifted them. He touched the leper. He embraced the sinner. He wept with the grieving. He calmed the storm. He fed the hungry. He healed the sick. And he carried a cross, your cross, so that you would never have to carry your burdens alone again. He bore the full weight of your sin, your shame, your sorrow, your sickness. He didn't flinch under its weight. He conquered it. He carried what you never could. And he still does. He carries the things that break you, the burdens that no one else sees, the pain that's buried so deep you can't even name it. He carries it all. And not with frustration or reluctance, but with compassion, with love, with joy even. There's nothing too trivial for his attention, nothing too deep for his healing. You don't have to earn the right to bring him your pain. You don't have to reach a spiritual level high enough to be worthy of his help. All you have to do is let go. All you have to do is trust that his hands are stronger than yours. And they are. You might be holding burdens right now that you picked up years ago, words spoken over you that still echo, memories that haunt you, regrets that cling to your soul. You might be holding the pressure to provide, to perform, to fix what feels broken. You might be trying to carry someone else's pain, hoping you can rescue them, change them, save them. But you were never meant to carry all of that, not alone. God never asked you to carry your family's salvation. He asked you to trust him with it. He never asked you to carry the weight of every decision. He asked you to lean on his wisdom. He never asked you to be everything for everyone. He asked you to rest in being his child. That's where the weight lifts. Not when the world gets lighter, but when you stop trying to carry it on your own. We often think of strength as the ability to keep going. But real strength is knowing when to stop and say, "God, I can't do this without you." That moment of release is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's maturity. It's faith. Because it takes faith to believe that someone else can carry what you can't. And it takes even more faith to believe that they will. But he will every single time. There has never been a moment he turned someone away who came to him with honest need. There has never been a burden too big for him to lift. There has never been a weight too heavy for his hands. And they never will be. His hands are not like yours. They are the hands that formed the stars and calmed the sea. The hands that healed the blind and raised the dead. The hands that stretched out on a cross and bore the full weight of humanity's sin. Those hands are mighty to save and gentle enough to hold your heart. Those hands are trustworthy. Those hands are sure. Those hands are capable. So you can stop gripping so tightly. You can unclench your fists. You can stop running yourself ragged, trying to fix what only God can heal. You don't have to carry what was never yours to hold. You don't have to live weighed down, worn out, or worn thin. You can lift your eyes and remember who your Father is. You can rest your soul and remember who your Savior is. You can release the burden and remember whose hands are holding you. Storms come without warning. One moment everything feels calm, and the next the winds are howling. The sky turns dark, and the waves rise up to crash over everything you thought was secure. Life has a way of throwing us into storms that shake us to our core. Grief that cuts deep, loss that feels unbearable, fear that steals sleep, betrayal that breaks trust, seasons of uncertainty that test every part of our faith. And in the middle of the chaos, when the storm surrounds us and we can't see the shore, our hearts begin to wonder if we're going to make it. But this storm will not sink you, because God is in the boat. It may feel like everything is falling apart, like the weight of the wind and waves is too much to survive. You may not see a way out. You may feel like you're drowning in sorrow or overwhelmed by fear. But God never promised we wouldn't face storms. He promised we wouldn't face them alone. And when the Almighty is in your boat, no storm has the power to destroy you. Think about the disciples on the Sea of Galilee. They were experienced fishermen, men who knew the water, men who had weathered storms before. But this storm was different. It was fierce. It was violent. It came out of nowhere and filled their boat with water. Panic rose. Fear took over. And yet Jesus was in the boat resting, sleeping, at peace. Because while they saw danger, he saw destiny. While they saw chaos, he saw opportunity to show them who he really was. The disciples cried out, "Don't you care that we are perishing? Isn't that what we ask in our storms? God, don't you see what I'm going through? Don't you care that I'm sinking? Don't you hear my cries? Don't you feel the weight of what I'm carrying?" But Jesus got up, looked at the storm, and spoke 3 words that changed everything. "Peace, be still." And the wind and waves obeyed. The storm didn't scare Jesus. It didn't surprise him. It didn't catch him off guard because he is Lord over the storm. The same voice that spoke the world into existence is the voice that commands the wind to rest. The same hands that form the earth are the hands that hold your boat. And the same heart that died to save you is the heart that beats with compassion in the middle of your fear. You might feel like the waves are too high and the winds are too strong. You might feel like this trial is more than you can bear, but the storm does not get the final say. The storm is not in control. The storm is not your God. Jesus is. And he has not left you. He has not forgotten you. He is not pacing the heavens in worry. He is right there with you, steady, calm, in control, even when you are not. Sometimes we think the presence of a storm means the absence of God. But it's often in the storm that we see him most clearly, because it's when the boat is rocking and we're desperate for rescue that we finally look to the one who's been there all along. Storms strip us of our self-sufficiency. They remind us how small we are and how mighty he is. They expose our fears but reveal his faithfulness. You may not understand why this storm came. You may not have expected it. You may not know how long it will last. But you are not alone. The same God who walked on water is the one walking beside you now. The same God who calmed the sea is the one who can calm your heart. And the same God who promised never to leave you is in the boat in the storm in the middle of the mess. And here's the beautiful thing about God being in the boat. Even if the storm rages on, you're still going to make it. Because the storm doesn't determine your destination. God does. He didn't bring you this far to let you drown now. He didn't call you into the deep to abandon you in the waves. If he said you're going to the other side, then no storm, no wind, no force of hell can stop that promise from being fulfilled. Storms allowed. Storms are terrifying, and they come with confusion and questions. But the presence of Jesus brings peace that surpasses understanding. Peace that doesn't make sense in the natural. Peace that holds you steady while everything around you is shaking. That peace isn't found in the absence of trouble. It's found in the presence of Christ. You might be in a season where everything feels out of control. Things you thought were secure are being shaken. Plans you made are falling apart. People you relied on are walking away. And the temptation is to let fear rise, to let hopelessness creep in, to think the storm is going to take you under. But take heart. God is not finished with your story. He is not worried about the wind. He is not intimidated by the wave. He speaks to them and they bow. He commands them and they obey. What looks like a storm meant to destroy you is actually the setting for a miracle. Because every time God allows a storm, He also reveals His power. He uses what's meant to break you, to build you. He takes the chaos and brings clarity. He uses the thunder to awaken something inside you that comfort never could. Growth happens in storms. Faith is forged in storms. Strength is developed in storms, and intimacy with God deepens when the waves are high and we cling to Him with everything we've got. Sometimes the miracle isn't that the storm stops. Sometimes the miracle is that you don't sink in it, that you're still standing, still breathing, still believing. That even though everything is shaking around you, your heart is held steady by the one who is unshakable. That's the kind of faith storms create. Not shallow faith that praises God when it's sunny, but rooted faith that worships Him in the middle of the wind. Remember Paul in the shipwreck? He told the crew that even though the ship would be lost, not a single life would be because God gave him a word. And even though the storm destroyed what they were sailing in, they made it safely to shore. Sometimes God allows the storm to break the boat so you'll realize He's the one carrying you. Sometimes what you thought you needed to survive isn't what you needed at all. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need to know exactly how it's going to work out. You just need to know who's with you. You just need to know that the one in the boat has authority over the storm. You just need to remember that His voice is more powerful than the wind. His presence is stronger than the waves. His love is deeper than the sea. The storm will not last forever. Storms pass. They always do. And when this one does, you'll look back and realize that you were never alone. That the presence you felt in the darkness was real. That the strength that carried you was not your own. That the peace that held you was divine, and that God was not only in the boat, He was steering it, protecting it, anchoring it, holding it through every wave. You may feel weak. You may feel like you can't take another hit. But your survival is not based on your strength. It's based on His. Your future is not in the hands of the wind. It's in the hands of the Savior, and if He is in the boat, then you can rest. You can breathe. You can believe again. Because no matter how big the storm, your God is bigger. No matter how loud the waves, His voice is louder. No matter how fierce the winds, His grip is firmer. This storm is not the end of your story. It's a chapter. And when you come through it, you won't be the same. You'll be stronger. You'll be wiser. You'll be more grounded in faith. You'll know His power in a way you never did before. You'll know His love in the depths of your pain. You'll know that He was in the boat, in the storm, in every moment, guiding, guarding, and carrying you all the way through. When storms rise, when burdens feel too heavy, when the plan doesn't make sense and your heart is broken, know this: God is not far. He is closer than your breath, nearer than your next thought. He is not watching from a distance. He is in the boat with you, holding what you cannot, carrying what overwhelms you and guiding you through what you don't understand. He sees the tears you cry in silence, feels the ache buried beneath your brave face, and hears the prayers you don't have the strength to speak aloud. And even when your faith wavers, His faithfulness does not. You were never meant to carry life alone. Not the heartbreak, not the pressure, not the confusion. God offers you His peace, His strength, His presence, because He loves you far more than you can comprehend. The storm may be raging around you, but it will not sink you. The burden may be heavy, but it is light in His hands. The path may be unclear, but the one who made it walks beside you. And when everything feels like it's falling apart, He's still holding you together. So rest, child of God. Rest in the truth that you are never alone, never forsaken, never without hope. Your Savior is mighty, your Redeemer is near, and your victory is certain because He is with you. Thank you for listening. May these words remind you of how deeply you are loved. Stay encouraged, stay anchored. God bless you, and may His peace surround you.